What India thinks today, global summit এই মুহূর্তে মঞ্চে বিদেশমন্ত্রী এস জয়শঙ।
Latin, Brazil, Argentina, Mexico. So these countries today count for more, they assert themselves more, and they want to share in the conversation. So it's like a company, there are more shareholders, but the management needs to recognize that there are more shareholders. So that's one. The second is actually the traumas of the last few years. You had this devastating thing called COVID. Many of us have come through it. But as someone who travels very extensively, I've been to places which haven't come through it, where the damage, to governance, the damage to the societal fabric, they've taken such a body blow that they're still kind of reeling from that. On top of that, the ups and downs of the global economy, they saw, okay, global inflation has gone up, debt has gone up, trade has been disrupted. Then you had the Ukraine conflict, okay? And the Ukraine conflict had very strong second-order effects, energy prices, food prices, fertilizer prices. Now you're seeing the Middle East, and again, the trade disruptions, the possibility. So what is happening is a lot of these countries feel, look, we are the people who are really suffering. But when there are big global meets, it's like they're we don't count. They are discussing a different world out there. So there's enormous sort of, I would say, actually use the word anger today in a lot of these countries. So when we were preparing for the G20, I heard personally, and so did the Prime Minister, from many countries who said, look, we expect you. You are India, you understand our pain, you've been there. Because, as former colonies, there's a certain bonding which comes from that. So we expect you to speak up for us. Now, we could have, just stood there and said, okay, we heard from people, but Prime Minister felt, let's actually gather everybody together and hear them out, and then kind of distill the essence of that, and then put it before the G20, and urge the G20 saying, look, we speak here, when we did our Global South Summit, we had 125 countries there. So when we spoke to the G20, we were not only speaking on behalf of India, the most populous country in the world, fifth largest economy, but we also had 125 countries who said, speak for us.
Well, one statement, speaking of the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, and the kind of leadership that he has shown over the last 10 years, and we are, of course, going into the elections now, is not an era of war. He said that at the SCO, he said that at the G20, and that was reflected in the consensus statement in New Delhi as well. I wouldn't ask you how difficult, these 2 years have been, amidst these wars between Russia and Ukraine, and now for the last 5 months between Israel and Hamas, and the position that India has taken, the independent position of self-interest, and the kind of statements that we have heard from Europe, and the kind of mirror that you have shown to the world. How important is this self-interest, not compromising, just like you said at the Munich Security Conference, that India is being smart about having multiple options?
Well, look, of course, a lot of it is about self-interest, and I see nothing wrong with self-interest. All of you have self-interest you pursue every day. But at times, it's also bigger than self-interest. Say, what I was speaking about Global South was bigger. We are not a country which is deeply indebted, but we do believe countries who are, something should be done for them. In the case of these issues, look, eventually the stand we took looked very natural. But you do go through that process of okay, something has happened, what do we say, who do we talk to, what are the pressures, the counter pressures, the arguments. And then somewhere something gels, in all of this. I think in the case of Ukraine, a lot of it, we were, at that time, the Security Council, okay? So the first, I was still actually on the flight back from France. I'd been meeting Macron the previous evening. When on the plane, I saw the news that the Russians had moved in. And that Security Council meeting was actually literally happening when I was on the plane. So I could only send text messages at least you could do that from a plane nowadays. That's a help. But from what initially became like, a political, I would say, a formulation, what is the messaging you are doing, once you moved fairly quickly into the sanctioning stage, Europe deciding that it was going to take some counteraction.